Hello everyone and welcome back once again to another class of Biology of Fun Scholar. So today we are going to discuss another chapter of class 7, that is nutrition in plants. So let's begin. So first of all we need to know what we mean by the term nutrition. So the word nutrition has been derived from a Latin word called nutrire. It's a Latin word and the meaning is to nourish. Meaning is to nourish. So the things or the items or whatever we consume that provides us that nourishment, that process is known as nutrition. Now, nutrition is required by all the living organisms in order to survive. But today, particularly, we are going to discuss nutrition that takes place in plants. So first, we will watch a video regarding this.
We all know that living beings depend on food for survival. What do we exactly mean by this? Food is basically any substance which we consume and which contains the essential nutrients. It means that food is a form of fuel which supplies the required energy to living beings. So, what essential nutrients are present in the food that we consume? Well, our body needs 6 major types of nutrients. Can you name them for me? Yes, these are carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, and water. We need to take all these food substances in required amounts which should be included in our diet. What exactly do we mean by the word diet? The combination of food items which we eat in our meals is what we call our diet. Our diet consists of all the essential substances which we require for our growth and development. So consuming these substances through our diet is enough for us, right? Not always. The most important thing to remember is consuming these essential nutrients in a correct or a proper amount. Are we not familiar with the term balanced diet? Yes, a balanced diet is the one which includes all necessary food items which supply all essential nutrients in a correct amount. This process of obtaining all the necessary nutrients through our diet is called as the process of nutrition. In other words, nutrition is the process where living beings are supplied with essential food components which serve important functions in the living body. Now we know that animals consume various plants and animals to gain the necessary nutrients. But have we ever seen plants consuming food like us? I assume never. So does that mean plants don't need nutrients? Don't they have nutrition as an important life process? Of course they do. But here's the best part. Plants are capable of making the nutrients rather than consuming it from some external source. Yes, green plants prepare their own food by utilizing solar power. Can you read the process for me?
I hope this is a very common process that you know from studying from your lower grades only. So this process is known as, yes, photosynthesis. And in this process, of photosynthesis, what happens if I write this term photosynthesis? Photo means light, right? And synthesis means to put together or to combine. To put together or combine. Okay, so in the that means photosynthesis is the primary process from which plants gain their nutrients, and in this process the presence of light is mostly needed, otherwise this process cannot be executed and the raw materials are put together or combined. Now what are the raw materials for photosynthesis? Carbon dioxide and water. And another thing is required in order to absorb the light. And when I mention light, I mainly talk about the natural source of light, which is the sunlight for our earth. Now we need some substance which can absorb the sunlight, and that substance in case of plants is the green pigment called the chlorophyll. Now going back to the video.
By utilizing solar power. Can you name the process for me? Yes, this process is called photosynthesis. For this reason, green plants are also called autotrophic organisms. And what do we mean by that? Autotrophs are organisms which can prepare their own food. And what about animals? They cannot prepare their own food inside their body, just like the green plants, right? Yes. Unlike green plants, some non-green plants and some animals are unable to prepare their own food. Can you guess what these types of organisms are called? Yes, they are called as heterotrophic organisms. Heterotrophs are those organisms which are unable to synthesize their own food. However, before learning about heterotrophs and their mode of nutrition, we need to understand how autotrophic organisms make their food. Let's discuss about green plants and the process of photosynthesis in the upcoming video.
So from the video, we have just now learned that the green plants are called the autotrophs. Now, if I again break this word into two, auto means self and troph means food. That is why, since green plants can make their own food, they are known as autotrophs. On the other hand, animals, including human beings, are called heterotrophs. Why? Because hetero means other and troph again means food. So, the organisms who cannot make their own food but have to rely on the autotrophs for the supply of nutrition, so those organisms are called as heterotrophs. So, now we know that food is essential for all living organisms, but how do we take them? This food is not the same for all the living organisms. Particularly in case of plants, their food is the abiotic factors, just like the carbon dioxide, water, and with the help of these abiotic factors only they prepare their own food. So we have already read about this, learned about this just now, autotrophic and heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now again we'll watch another video regarding the detailing of plant nutrition. Let's watch it.
Green plants are a unique creation of nature. Unlike animals, they can very well prepare their own food. And what is this process called? Yes, it's called the process of photosynthesis. Now, the question is that how do they perform this process? Let's understand the requirements for this process first. There are three major things that plants need in this process: carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight. Plants synthesize their food in the form of a sugar. This sugar is the glucose produced in the plants. However, apart from these three major factors, there are a few more important ones also in the list. Yes, these are the minerals present in the soil. But wait a second. We know that photosynthesis occurs in the green leaves of the plants, whereas the minerals are present in the soil. So, who makes this transport possible? Well, the minerals are transported after they're dissolved in water. So, what are the major components required for photosynthesis? One of them is carbon dioxide, which is obtained from air. Next, it's light, which is obtained from the sun. Then there's water, which is absorbed through the roots. And important minerals are obtained through soil after being dissolved in the absorbed water. But what exactly is the role of these minerals? These minerals are like nutrients for plants. Nutrients are substances that are needed to maintain the plant body and help them do all its life processes. And we know that these are obtained from the soil. Now, what will happen if the soil lacks these nutrients? If any of the nutrients are not present, then a plant won't grow to its full potential. And what do we mean by this? It simply means that the plant will suffer from certain deficiencies. It will not grow normally and will have defective parts or systems. Now tell me, are all these nutrients available in the soil? Well, sometimes they're not. In that case, we can add them artificially. What do we call them then? These are called as fertilizers. In simple words, fertilizers are chemicals that increase the soil fertility and the nutrient content in the soil. Now that we know what all the plants need, we can move on to the next question we have. How exactly do these plants prepare the food? How does the beautiful process of photosynthesis work? We will answer these questions in the coming lessons.
So we will now look into the details as I told you and already shown in the video. We will now know how the plants actually carry out the process of photosynthesis. Now firstly, the role of the leaves. So what is the role of the leaves? The leaves are also known as the kitchen of the plant because it is the site where the food is prepared. Now, apart from the leaves which are green in color, particularly because only those leaves will contain the pigment chlorophyll to absorb the sunlight. So, other parts of the plant such as the young green stem, they can also prepare the food because they also contain the pigment called chlorophyll. But as of now, we need to know that since leaves are the majorly green parts of the plants, so therefore they are known as the kitchen of the plant where the food preparation process takes place. And for that, all the materials just like the water, minerals, carbon dioxide, which are essential for preparing the food, that is glucose, must reach the kitchen, that means the leaves. The thing is, now we'll watch another video how the raw materials are transported from the various sources.
that plants also need nutrition for their growth. But how do they get it? We never see them having food like us. Well, green plants possess a power which humans can only dream of. They carry out a magical process in which solar energy is converted into chemical energy. Can you recall the name of the process for me? That's right. This process is called photosynthesis. And what are these green plants performing photosynthesis called? Yes, they are called autotrophs. Autotrophic organisms are those which are able to prepare their own food. Now tell me one thing. Are humans also autotrophs? You may say yes because we do prepare our own food. That's not the right answer. Although we can make delicious dishes, we cannot prepare the food molecules that are made by plants. We actually use the food molecules of plants in the dishes we make. That is the reason why we are heterotrophic organisms. Now getting back to green plants, can you tell me where exactly does this process occur in the plant body? Let me give you a hint. We say that photosynthesis is carried out by the green plants. So, is it true the green parts of the plant are necessary for photosynthesis? Yes, you're on the right track. That means the leaves are the principal sites of photosynthesis. Along with these, other green parts of the plants also carry out photosynthesis, although not as efficiently. Now we know why leaves are referred to as the kitchen of the plant. The leaves produce the food which is utilized by the whole plant. If there is any excess food, it gets stored in the stem of the plant. Now, an obvious question to pop up in our minds is what makes green leaves capable of carrying out this process? What special thing do they possess that other organisms do not have? The answer is chlorophyll. But wait, do we know exactly what chlorophyll is? For now, all we need to know is that it's a green colored pigment that's present in the specialized structures of the plant cells. These packet-like structures are called chloroplast. Now the next question to arise in our minds is how this packet called chloroplast and the pigment inside it called chlorophyll can carry out such a complicated process. Well, the chlorophyll helps to trap the energy from sunlight. This light energy is then used to synthesize sugars from carbon dioxide and water. And the form of sugar synthesized is glucose. Plants also release oxygen gas, which is used by animals and humans during respiration. Interesting, right? Yes, it is. So, is this all that the process of photosynthesis is? Of course not. For now, we've just taken an introductory look at this process. In the next video, we will have a more detailed study of the process of photosynthesis.
So now let's have a look of this transport of raw materials. We have already seen that how the different raw materials are transported to the kitchen of the plant, that is the leaf. So water and minerals are transported by the roots and they are transported via the stem to reach the leaves. So there are vessels and these vessels are called the xylem, which carry the water and the minerals from the roots to the leaves, and carbon dioxide is absorbed via the process of diffusion through the tiny pores called the stomata. So the water, minerals and the carbon dioxide, these are the raw materials principally which can carry out, for which photosynthesis process will be possible. And for the light, obviously the sunlight should be present, otherwise photosynthesis cannot occur. Now, how does the stomata opens and close? Let's check an video here. Okay, so first we'll know that, for example, The guard cells are there. The guard cells are kidney bean shaped, right? So these are the guard cells, two guard cells, and the pore, that is the stomatal pore. Okay. Now what happens when the water is absorbed by the roots and they enter the guard cells, then the guard cells swell up and they come to a condition called turgid condition, in which they guard cells swell up, and when they swell up they stretch open the pore of the stomata just like the opening of the collapsible gate. And on the contrary, when water moves out of the guard cells, they become flaccid. They become flaccid and they shrink. They shrink and they close the stomatal pore. Okay, so it depends on the water content of the cell. When the water content is high or water is supplied to the guard cells, they swell up and stretch open the stomatal pore. And on the other hand, when the water moves out of the cell, the guard cells shrink, become flaccid, and they actually close the stomatal pore. Now, what is the role of chlorophyll in the process of photosynthesis? You have already watched in the video that it helps to actually capture the solar energy, and it turns the solar energy into the chemical energy of the food for the plants, that is the glucose. This conversion takes place in the chloroplast where the chlorophyll pigment is present. Chloroplast is a cell organelle that is present in the plant cells only, and in that chloroplast only chlorophyll pigment is present, which converts the solar energy into the chemical energy. Now, the photosynthesis process, if we summarize in the form of an equation, it will look like this, that this is a balanced equation, but carbon dioxide and water, they combine together to produce glucose, and oxygen is liberated out as the byproduct of this process through the stomata in the process of diffusion. Now solar energy is present, and then you can see here 6 molecules of carbon dioxide combines with another 6 molecules of water to produce 1 molecule of glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen. This is a very simple equation for the process of photosynthesis. So we will now try to understand the photosynthesis process with the help of a simulation. Now see, during the daytime when the sun is high up in the sky, you can see carbon dioxide entering the plant body through diffusion. And sunlight is also being absorbed by the chlorophyll molecules, and in turn water and along with the dissolved minerals is being absorbed by the roots from the surrounding soil. Now everything is there in the kitchen of the plants, and so therefore the plants can now synthesize the food, that is the glucose. See here the equation is also given, and along with that oxygen will be liberated out as the byproduct. Now if I click on the leaf, you can see the magnified view where in each stomata you can see the stomata are guarded by the enclosed by the guard cells. During the daytime the condition is like this only, the carbon dioxide will get inside and then oxygen will come out as a result of the process of photosynthesis. Now what will happen during the night time? In the night time the reverse condition is happening here, because since there is no sunlight, so photosynthesis will not take place. Only the plant, being a living organism, will respire, and just like any other living organism, it will take oxygen through diffusion once again through the stomata, and then it will give out carbon dioxide. And now if I see the magnified image, you can now see oxygen will get inside the stomatal pore and carbon dioxide will come out. So this is the difference between the daytime and nighttime condition in case of photosynthesis and respiration of the plants. Now, I already told earlier also, the beside leaves photosynthesis also occurs in the green parts which contain chlorophyll and can absorb the solar energy. The desert plants have scales or spine-like leaves to reduce the water loss by transpiration. And these plants have green stems which carry out photosynthesis. This is a form of adaptation, because if they have the flat lamina of the leaves, so they will lose so much water through transpiration process that they will not be able to survive. That is why their leaves have been converted into spines. So if the leaves have been converted into spines, needle-like structures, then who will conduct the process of photosynthesis? Obviously other parts of the plant, just like the green fleshy stem. The green fleshy stem which also stores water, food, and even conducts the process of photosynthesis for the desert plants like cactus. Now, what is the importance of this process of photosynthesis? Obviously, if the photosynthesis is not carried out, photosynthesis is not the process through which only plants obtain their nutrition. If plants don't survive, so by obtaining their nutrition through the process of photosynthesis, then we the heterotrophs won't be able to survive, because the heterotrophs, among the heterotrophs, there are various categories like herbivore, carnivore, omnivore, right? So the thing is that if plants do not survive, so obviously herbivores won't survive. Then the carnivores, which actually rely on the herbivores, they will not survive. Okay, and then the omnivores, which rely both on the plant products and the animal products. So if these categories of animals, they do not survive, and the plants are not surviving from the beginning only, if photosynthesis is not there, then obviously omnivores will also not survive. So the thing is that the whole ecosystem will collapse, the food chain will collapse, and the biosphere will not be able to sustain itself. So that is why food processing, that the food preparation factory is very much essential, from which each type of food chain, all the food waves will start. So the starting point of any food chain you consider any food chain or any food well will always be an autotroph who can make its own food, and from that food only other type of organisms just like the herbivore, carnivore or omnivore or other consumers can get their nutrition. So from the food prepared by the plant, the whole biosphere is dependent. So now you can imagine the importance of this process. And also, since oxygen is released as the byproduct of this process, so the living organisms including the plants themselves cannot survive if oxygen is not available in the atmosphere. So we won't survive without photosynthesis in any of the ways. Number one, due to lack of the food. Number two, due to lack of oxygen for respiration. Now we will try to understand the role of sunlight in photosynthesis by doing a small experiment, that if we take the leaf of two potted plants, right? One leaf, in one leaf we have tied a certain region, right, with the tape in which sunlight won't be absorbed because we have tied the region with the tape. So now what will happen, that this region, you can see the region marked here, won't be able to absorb sunlight. Okay, now you place that leaf out in the sunlight, and after a few days you pluck that leaf and carry out the iodine test. What is the iodine test? We first boil the leaf or put the leaf in a water bath, and then we put the iodine, and then with the iodine is an indicator for the presence of starch, is an indicator for the presence of starch. What will we observe? We will observe that the region which was actually tied up with the tape, that region will not turn blue-green because this region has not been able to photosynthesize. That is why it won't turn blue-green in the presence of iodine. But the other regions which has been able to absorb sunlight and carry out photosynthesis has turned blue because these regions have stored the glucose in the form of starch. This is the storage form of glucose in plants. So since iodine is an indicator for starch, so wherever there will be this dark blue color, we can understand that these regions have stored starch because these regions could photosynthesize and prepare their own food. So this experiment proves that the presence of sunlight is so much essential for the process of photosynthesis. Now, synthesis of plant food other than carbohydrates. So, therefore, do the plants only synthesize glucose? Glucose is a form of simple sugar, that means it is a form of carbohydrate. It is a simple monosaccharide. But other than the carbohydrates, plants also need proteins because protein are known as body building food. Proteins help us to grow and develop. So plants actually get proteins in the form of nitrates from the soil. So the soil should be enriched with protein. Otherwise, as you have watched in the video, we need to enrich the soil artificially with the help of fertilizers which are enriched with nitrogen, so that the plants can get the nitrogen in the form of nitrates from the soil and can prepare protein for plant growth and development. Now, here it is given the what are the sources of getting nitrogen in the soil. The atmospheric nitrogen cannot be actually utilized. In the atmosphere, the concentration of nitrogen is highest, almost 78%, but still this nitrogen cannot be utilized because the plants need nitrogen in the soluble form so that it can absorb that along with water and utilize it. So therefore, there are certain soil bacteria, those are known as nitrogen fixing bacteria, which converts the atmospheric nitrogen into the nitrates, and that is the usable form for the plants. And the examples are also given: rhizobium, and these forms are absorbed from the soil only because plants have no means to directly absorb nitrogen from the atmosphere through diffusion. Now let's discuss a bit about the leguminous plants. So what are leguminous plants? They are also known as legumes. Examples are pea plant, beans plant. So leguminous plants, they contain this bacteria called nitrogen fixing bacteria called the rhizobium in their root nodules. They form water nodules. They are lump like small lump like structures in the roots. So therefore they are in the, you can see here these lump like structures just like cysts. So therefore these nodules are present, and these bacteria have the symbiotic relationship with that of the roots of the plants. What do they do? Symbiotic means mutual benefit relation. Means the rhizobium actually fix the atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into the usable form so that the plants can absorb it from the soil and use for protein synthesis. So in return, the rhizobium, they can take the ready-made food prepared by the plant. So the both the plants as well as the nitrogen fixing bacteria, that is the rhizobium, both are benefited in this symbiotic relationship. Now, fertilizers and plant growth, we also have seen in the video that whenever the soil lacks a certain nutrient, so we can use the fertilizer enriched with that particular nutrient so that the deficiency of that nutrient in the soil and in turn in the plant which absorb minerals from that soil can be compensated. And along with fertilizer, we have another organic option, that is manure. Now what is the difference? The major difference is that obviously this is chemically produced, synthetically produced, whatever you say, and it is an organic form. It is produced from the leftover vegetables, the rotten vegetables, the vegetable and fruit peels, from all the organic matter. But it is the chemical form. Another major difference is that manure provides wholesome nutrition. The manure is not actually contains a particular type of nutrient, that means particular nitrogen, particular phosphor, particular that potassium, no. But in case of fertilizer, you can get the particular nutrient for which the soil is deficient. So that is the benefit of fertilizer over the manure. Manure helps to enrich the soil in a wholesome manner. It ensures that the soil is porous so that air circulation or aeration in the soil is very good. It actually enhances the water holding capacity of the soil. So many benefits are there. But when we need a particular nutrient for the soil, so then we need to go for the fertilizers. Fertilizers also, if we use judicially, then it can lead to less problems, as we can hear. For example, if we use excessive fertilizer, then only the problem of pollution of the water bodies, this can occur. But if we use fertilizers at the right time and at the adequate quantity, then all these problems can be overcome to a large extent. Now coming to heterotrophic modes of nutrition in case of plants. Can plants also carry out heterotrophic mode of nutrition? And why do they need to go for heterotrophic mode of nutrition if they are autotrophic in nature? So that is the main question. But for some plants, they cannot make their own food. We call them the non-green plants. That means obviously they are not green in color due to the absence of chlorophyll. So if chlorophyll is not present, solar energy will not be absorbed, and that is why such plants cannot make their own food. And for such plants, we have the heterotrophic mode of nutrition. How they carry out this mode of nutrition? Let's see. So first we will see a video, watch a video regarding parasitic mode of nutrition.
In our previous video, we learned about heterotrophs, which are defined as the organisms which are unable to prepare their own food. We have also seen how the first category of heterotrophs, that saprophytes, obtain their nutrition. This is the organism which depends on dead and decaying organic matter for their nutrition. Let us now focus on the next.
So saprophytic nutrition we need to understand, such as the fungus, just as the mushroom, they actually depend on the dead and decayed matter from which they actually grow on that matter, decompose the matter, and they actually get their nutrition. So in this way they actually act like a form of decomposer also.
Category of heterotrophs from our list, that is the parasites. Parasites are a class of organisms which derive nutrition directly from the body of the living organisms. That means they do not kill the organisms on which they thrive. But yes, they do harm the organism severely. The organism whose body acts as a source of nutrition is called the host. In simple words, we can say that the parasitic nutrition is a mode of heterotrophic nutrition where organisms known as a parasite lives on or inside the body of another organism, that's the host. Now parasites are mainly animals. But there are a few plants in this category as well. Yes, a few non-green plants that derive some or all nutrition from the host plant are included in this type. To understand this, let's take the example of dodder, which is a parasitic plant. This parasite obtains its nutrition directly from the body of the host. But how does it obtain this necessary nutrition? Its leaves are reduced to tiny brown scales. That means the plant totally lacks chlorophyll pigment that's required for photosynthesis. So the plant wraps itself around the stem of the host plant, as we can see here. Now the dodder smartly pierces the stem of the host to reach its vascular bundles. What are vascular bundles, by the way? The xylem tubes carrying water and phloem tubes carrying food are collectively called vascular bundles. So the dodder pierces the vascular bundles of the host using specialized needle-like root structures. Then it gradually starts absorbing all the necessary nutrition from the host plant. All parasitic plants work in a somewhat similar manner. They require nutrients to carry out essential functions, including reproduction and growth. Plants are indeed unique, and so are the methods of synthesizing or acquiring food from the nature. Now let us move on with the list to learn more about other heterotrophs. We will talk about symbionts and insectivores, the types of heterotrophic plants, in the upcoming videos.
So I hope you could understand a bit from the video about the parasitic mode of nutrition in case of plants. So another example, one example was shown in the video as of dodder, and another example is Cuscuta, and it is also known as amarbel in local terms. So therefore Cuscuta is also a parasitic plant without chlorophyll, and it obtains food from the host plant it climbs. Can you see the fiber like structures hanging from the main tree? These are all the structures of Cuscuta. It has actually entangled the whole host organism, that is the host tree, and the host is deprived of nutrients, making Cuscuta a parasite. In the same manner as you have seen in the case of Dodder, Cuscuta also derives the nutrition from the vascular bundle, and the nutrition requirement of the main host organism or the tree who can actually make its own food is compromised. So coming to the next type of heterotrophic mode of nutrition in plants, that is the insectivorous plants. Insectivorous plants, from the name itself you can understand that they actually depend on insects. They depend on insects as their food to derive their nutrition, particularly the protein, or I can say the nitrogen, right? Because insectivorous plants grow in soil that is poor in nitrogen content, poor in nitrogen content. So that is why, and if nitrogen is not there, the plant will not be able to synthesize protein for the proper growth and development. So it has to rely on devouring the insects from whose body it can get the proper nutrition for nitrogen. Okay. Now there are many types of insectivorous plants. First is the pitcher plant. You can see here the shape is like a pitcher which actually holds water. So here in this case it doesn't hold water, it holds the insect once it gets inside. The length of it is about 10 to 20 centimeter long, and there is a lid. Once any insect comes in contact with this pitcher, the lid closes and the insect is dropped inside the pitcher, and then the enzymatic juices will digest the insect and kills it. So, and from that body, the plant, that is the pitcher plant, gets its nutrition and compensates for the lack of nitrogen that is there in the soil in which it grows. Okay, and here the leaf is actually, this is also modification of leaf example. Here the leaf has been modified in the shape of this picture and the leaf. Now it also has got the downward facing hairs. What is the role of these hairs? These hairs actually push the insect inside the pitcher so that it can be killed, digested, and nutrition can be obtained from it. See, I told you that in nutrient poor soil, that means actually particularly the nitrogen. So now we'll see another video which speaks about the saprophytic mode of nutrition.
In our previous video, we have learned how green plants or autotrophs perform the food making process. By now, we definitely know what this process is called, right? Yes, the process by which green plants are able to make their own food is called photosynthesis. Now we know about autotrophs. Let us move on to heterotrophic organisms and their mode of nutrition. Heterotrophs are those which are unable to prepare their own food. But then, how do they obtain the necessary nutrients? Unlike green plants, heterotrophs depend on other living or dead organisms for their food. These can be broadly divided into three major categories based on their food habit. These include saprophytes, parasites, holozoic organisms. Another major category we generally study includes the symbionts as well. But what exactly are these categories? Let's study each type in detail. Let's begin with the saprophytes first. Their name is made up of two parts. Sapros, meaning rotten material, and phyte or phytic, meaning plant. So are they rotten plants by any chance? Of course not. These are non-green organisms, for example, fungi, and they derive nutrition from the dead, decaying, and rotting matter. That is why they are named saprophytes. So almost all fungi, including yeast, moldy bread, and mushrooms, are included in this category. These organisms, in their true sense, are achlorophyllous. Wait a second, what do we mean by this? Well, it literally means organisms that do not possess chlorophyll pigment in them. Now, the next question we have is how do they obtain nutrition? If they do not prepare their food and obtain nutrients from the decaying matter, then how does the process actually work? Have you come across the term digestive enzymes? Well, these are chemicals which are helpful in breaking down the complex molecules of food into simpler ones. The saprophytes secrete and release various digestive enzymes from their body onto the decaying matter. And can you guess what does this result in? Yes, the digestive enzymes from the saprophyte's body will break down the complex molecules in their food. This food, as we know, is the dead matter around them. Once the breakdown is completed, they absorb the nutrients easily. This absorption occurs because the nutrients are dissolved in the water present around and directly absorbed by the saprophyte. This is how the saprophytic mode of nutrition occurs. Now tell me, are fungi the only saprophytes in nature? Well, there are some bacteria too which depend on dead organisms to sustain their life. These are also included in the list of saprophytes. Now that we're done with the first type, let's move on to the next type, that's the parasitic mode of nutrition. We will get to know this type in detail in the next video.
So you have got the idea of saprophyting mode of nutrition, that is nutrition from dead and decaying matter. So the common types of saprotrophs, that means the non-green or achlorophyllous plants, which actually depend on this type of nutrition, are mushrooms or the agaricus, the rhizopus or the bread molds, and the yeast. And I already told they help in the decomposition process also, because they break down the complex organic matter of the dead and the decaying substance, and they convert them into simpler nutrient substances, which can be directly absorbed by them and which helps them to get the nutrition that they are looking for. Now the role of moisture. Now the role of moisture is very vital for the survival of the saprotrophs, because moisture helps them to grow and moisture helps them in the breakdown of the organic material also. So therefore we often see that the bread molds, particularly in our day-to-day life, if we leave the break then overnight, particularly during the rainy season or the monsoon season, it will be very quick that it will be surrounded by the rhizopus or the bread mold, because moisture is the condition for moisture provides the conducive environment for the saprotrophs to grow on the dead and decaying matter. So as I told you, they also contribute to the soil fertility. See, because in the breaking down, so they also return some of the nutrients back to the soil. So the soil will also be enriched with the nutrients that have been taken up by the green plants for their survival. So they actually help the green plants also for the survival. And since green plants are the foundation on which the whole food wave and the whole ecosystem is dependent for food, so therefore in turn they are helping all the organisms to derive their nutrition. So fungi also grow on pickles, leather, clothes and other articles that are left in hot and humid weather for long time. So as I told you, since they break down the organic matter into simpler forms, so they actually make or spoil the items and they actually make the items rotten, what we say in general terms. So because they break down the composition, they break down the composition of the food item or whatever substances they are growing on. So it basically happens in the rainy season due to the conducive environment. So this is the experiment. I already told you that if you spray some water for moisture and then keep it in a zipper bag for 7 to 10 days, after you take it out, you will see that black colored molds will be present. And if you observe these black molds under the microscope, you will be able to see the growth of the rhizopus, the mycelium, the network like thread like structures of the rhizopus, which will actually confirm the presence of fungus due to the hot and humid condition. Now, the fungal spores, they are also very active in spreading from one place to another. The substance on which the fungus grows is known as the substratum. It is the base on which the fungus grows, right? So, and also when the fungus matures, it has got, you can see this is the rhizopus, this is the structure of the rhizopus in the magnified view under the microscope. Also you will be able to see this, the bulbous structure, the bulbous head, which is known as the spongiophores, that means which will the sporangia. These are the sporangia in plural, and in singular it is the sporangium. So these sporangia will contain the spores, and the spores are dispersed in the air and it spreads from one place to another. So therefore, if one bread is rotten, you can see like this, so it is likely, very likely, that you need to separate it out and keep it or throw it away, so that the other fresh materials or the other type of food or the fresh foods are not spoiled due to the spreading or dispersion of this spores from the, when the sporangia, they actually dehisce and they actually give out the spores in the open air. So they are microscopic minute spores which cannot be seen by the naked eyes. They get deposited on the substances, and when they get the optimum condition for germination, they again grow into the fungus called the rhizopus, and the same cycle then again continues. So again, the saprophytic nutrition, we have already seen that they secrete the digestive juices, the decomposing matter, and breaks them down into soluble form which they can absorb. Now coming to symbiotic type of relationship. Let's watch a video first.
In our previous video, we have seen how parasites obtain nutrition from a living host. Now let us move ahead and have a look at the next type from our list of heterotrophs. These are called symbiotic organisms or even symbionts. Before learning more about these organisms, let's understand the term symbiosis. Do you know what it means? The word literally means living together. So now can you guess what could be symbionts? Yes, these are organisms that live in association with other organisms. Now you may say that all the organisms live together in an ecosystem. We know this, right? But that is not the actual explanation. In the case of symbiosis, two organisms organisms live attached to or inside one another's body. Yes, one organism is like a shelter for the other organism. So, in simple words, we define a symbiont as an organism that's present in association with some other organism. Now, it is obvious that the two organisms in a symbiotic relation will be different. Tell me one thing, are the two organisms not affected by each other's presence? Of course they are, but mostly in a beneficial manner. Symbiosis is usually meant for the benefit of both the organisms. It can also be beneficial for one and harmless to the other, as seen in many cases. So, do we have examples of symbionts to study? Yes, of course.